Alright, hello and welcome back. It's your boy Hank Hackerson at Hank Hacks Hackers, your favorite network and system attacker. And in today's video, we are going through the Metasploit Exploitation room, which is a part of the Metasploit module of the junior pen tester. And so the last video that I released was the vulnerability capstone, and I've already done a Metasploit introduction video. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go into the Metasploit Exploitation room, which is the room that we're in right here. I've completed this room already, but I do realize that there is no video on it. So I'm going to do the actual video on this. And this one should be a good one because Metasploit is a really badass tool. And it is a beautiful rainy day here in California. I've done a lot of recording today. So this is going to just continue, and we're going to try to get as many recordings as we possibly can to get as much content for you as humanly possible. So Metasploit Exploitation is the room that we're in today. If you are studying for your Pentest Plus or Ethical Hacker certification or security analyst or any of those things, I do welcome you to like and subscribe and turn on that notification bell, because all of the stuff that we talk about on this channel has to do with hacking, pen testing, and security analysis. And it's literally the only purpose that this channel has. And if you're studying for any of those things or trying to do that as your job, then everything that we do actually applies directly to you. And you can either use this information for your certification exams, or you can use it in your day-to-day activities as a pen tester or ethical hacker or security analyst. So I think it'll be super useful for you, and I would personally love to have you as a part of our community, and we can just go along this path together, this pathway of becoming hackers, or, especially ethical hackers, excuse me. But, you do what you do. I just want you to know that if you get caught, it's not on me, and that it's a felony if you get caught. So just keep that part in mind. But apart from that, it will be love to have you as a part of this community. It's been a beautiful, growing community, and I think it'll be really, really fun to grow down this path together. So without further ado, let's jump into the introduction of this room. All right, as an intro, what we need to know is Metasploit is a vulnerability scanner and exploitation software. It can do a lot of really cool things, and it has a lot of stuff pre-installed in it. And if you just start up MSF console, you can get access to everything. But there's another thing that it also has is called MSFVenom, that creates payloads for you, like reverse TCP shells or, a lot of various types of payloads. So very, very cool tool. You can either use the MSF console or the MSFVenom without actually going into the console. And I'll show you what that means in a little bit. But we're going to talk about in this particular room is going to be how to scan targets using Metasploit, how to use the Metasploit database feature, how to use the Metasploit to conduct a vulnerability scan, and how to use it to exploit vulnerable services on target systems. MSFVenom is also going to be used to create some payloads and obtain a interpreter session on our target system. So it's going to be really fun to do. We're going to be using some word lists that come inherent with the attack box that we're in right now to do some brute force attacks, which basically means we're going to be using this word list to try to get into a system with all of the various choices and options that are inside this word list. And that's going to be fun to do. The word list in this case is installed on our attack box at this particular pathway. And of course, we can use our own machine. So you're more than welcome to use your own machine to be able to do this. You just need to download this task file right here to be able to use the word list that we're going to be using. Or you can just go do a GitHub search and try to find the word list through GitHub. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. I just like doing the attack box because it's available for me to instantiate very, very quickly at any point that I want. And it's just been it's been super convenient. For me, it's very, very convenient to run the attack box in the same place that I get to turn on the victim machines, which is these little green buttons that you see right here. These are all victim machines that we get to start. And so you get the attack box, and then you get a victim machine all in the same place. And then you get to run and gun and kick some ass. So to get this thing started, I'm just going to type in MSF console so that it starts the Metasploit console for us. And we're going to jump into task 2, which is scanning with Metasploit. All right, while that continues, oh, there you go, right there, it just started. So port scanning Very easy process, and it's very similar to running a scan with Nmap or something like that, except we're going to be using Metasploit to do it. So the first thing that we got to do is learn how to run search. And I do recommend that you actually watch the intro to Metasploit if you haven't done so already, because a lot of the stuff that we're going to be doing right now, as far as just searching and finding things and kind of doing the basic setup of certain exploits, we've done all of that inside the intro video. So in this video, we're going to be doing a little bit more advanced stuff and actually using a lot of the commands that we learned in the introduction video. So search allows us to search for whatever we want to search for. So we're going to do search port scan, and then now it's going to show us everything that's actually available that has port scan in it, right? So there's this, there's basically 8 different options that are available for us here. And this, there's the XMS version of the port scan, the ACK version, the TCP version, the SYN version. There's the SAP router, a lot of things, right? FTP bounce. There's a lot of different types of port scanners that are available here. And in this particular case, I guess, which one do we want to do? We're going to be using the port scan TCP option here. And so in order to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use, let me see if that's actually what we're supposed to do in this one. Yeah, so we're going to use it to actually run our port scan. There's different versions of it. Let me see. It doesn't seem like we're going to be actually using the TCP port scan, but they do want us to kind of just see what the options are inside it. So what I'm going to do in this case is I'm just going to do use and then the number 5 that's associated with this particular scanner. So I just do use 5 and it turns it on, and just like that I have the port scanner. And then there's another option called show options that will show you everything that you can do with this particular scanner, and it shows you what's required, which is very important. Okay, so concurrency, the number of concurrent ports to check. Delay is the delay between connections. Jitter is the delay jitter factor, meaning whether or not you want it to kind of change and be variable instead of having a set delay every single time. And then the ports is 1 to 10,000. So you can only scan between 1 to 10,000 in this current setting, or you can change it to be all 65,000 or just a handful of ports, something like that. Our host is going to be the target host that you want to do, and that's the one thing that's been left blank. So if you pay attention to that, we actually have to set that because it's required. And then you have threads, the number of concurrent threads that are going to go out and try to scan at the same time, and then timeout. The socket will time out in 1,000 milliseconds, which I think is 1 second when we look at that. So these are the options for the TCP scanner, and very simple. And then there's another option that we can just run by just being inside Metasploit, which is Nmap. You could literally run Nmap from within Metasploit, and from there you can use everything else that's also inside of Metasploit. So if I just type in back, then it takes me back to the regular command line of that, and then I can just run Nmap against the current IP that we got as our victim machine, and from there we can get some more information, right? So that's another option that we can run to try to see what we got over here. And then we have the UDP service identification, which is another exploit that's available here. And so just like I had here, I can just do search and I can do UDP sweep to see where that is. And it's the only option that actually is here for UDP sweep, and it's the same thing, scanner, discovery, UDP sweep. So now in this case, since it's number 0, I could just do use 0 and it'll turn that on and do show options, and it'll show me all the options for it. And the only thing that I have to in this case is just set the host, and then it'll scan and it'll do a UDP scan of whatever my host is, and it'll run it just like this. And run is the command, by the way. Yeah, so that's probably another thing to know. Run is the command. You could either say run or you can say exploit. Either one, it'll actually turn on that scanner or turn on whatever exploit you're using, and it'll give you the results that you're looking for. And then we have one last one, which is the SMB scan, the server message block scanner. And just like that, we can again go back, and then I can do search SMB enum shares, and it'll give me that one, and that's the only one that comes. So I can do use 0 and it activates it for me, and then I can now do show options to see what the options for this one are. and it has a lot more options in this one. So we can see what is required, what's not required, and a lot of things are already preset for us, so that's nice. But you always need an R host. More often than not, you always need an R host. And there are certain things that aren't required. So the SMB username or the SMB password is not necessarily required in this case. And a lot of these things aren't actually required, but you can set them if you want to customize your scan. All right, so to actually answer these questions, what we need to do is we need to use some scanners here. So the first one is how many ports are open on the target system. So I guess I could just run an Nmap scan, but let's do search port scanner and see what is available here. So we have a couple of different port scanners here. What does the hint says? It says use the port scanner module on Metasploit, and it's the SAP port scanner, and then there's another one. We got a few more options at the beginning when we searched for something. Oh, we did port scan. That's what we did. So we do search port scan, and it'll give us more options, and there we go. So now we have a bunch of different things here, and so we have the, I guess we could, I'm gonna use the fifth one, which is the TCP scan right here. And now I wanna do show options, and it's gonna show me all the options that I gotta do, and everything's set for me except our hosts. So I need to do set our hosts, and then I need to give it the actual IP address of the machine that we got here, which is this thing. So I'm going to copy this IP address, I'm gonna paste it right here and press enter. And then right there, it says our host is now equal to that. So our host is good. And if I do show options one more time, we'll see that our host has indeed been set to what we want. So now we could just do run, and it's gonna start running. And so far we have 4 ports open, 22, 21, 139, 445. And there we go, 5 ports, and that's it. So we got 5 ports open. And the answer down here is exactly 5. So we got that. Now the relevant scanner to find NetBIOS, right? So I mean, the answers are literally on the screen, so it's kind of cheating a little bit, but we're still gonna do the work. So we're gonna do search NetBIOS and see what comes here. And now we have a few different things. And the question here, it says, what NetBIOS name can you see? So what we need to find is something that has to do with name, which is right here, auxiliary scanner NetBIOS NB name, and that is option 2. So we're going to do use 2 and then show options to see what we need to set up over here, and everything is done for us except what? Our hosts. So now we're going to do the same exact thing as before. We're going to do set our hosts, and it's going to be the IP right here. Ooh, what? How is that? It just cut out the first letter or the first few numbers of the IP? How does that even work? So let's go back up here. I mean, I could have just done 10, I guess. But there we go. Set our host 1010. There it is. It's been set. So now run it. And now it's going to run it for us. And I didn't do show options again because you already know that if you do set and it gives you this output, that means it's set and it's all good. So you could just run it because everything else was already set for us. So now we just need to wait for us to give us the NetBIOS name. And there you go. We got it. The NetBIOS name right here is Acme IT Support. And that's basically it. OS Unix names. And this is the IP address. And that's the name. MS Browse Acme IT Support. And so we can just go back here. And just like that, Acme IT Support is the NetBIOS name. So what is running on port 8000? So that's another thing that we could do. We could do an Nmap scan. Oh, you know what? There's an HTTP version module is what they want us to use. Port 8000 is typically HTTP or a web server. And we already established that we had 5 ports open, right? So from the last thing that we did, we actually see that there's a port 8000 open. So what we can do is go back and then search for HTTP version, and there's going to be only one thing that we can use. So use 0 right here and show options. You already know the drill. And so proxies is not required for us to set. Our host is required for us to set, and that's pretty much the only thing that's required for us to set. So I just want to make sure that I copy the right IP address again. So set our hosts, just like that. and then paste the IP, enter, our host has been set, run, and just like that, look at that, damn, that was fast as hell. Scanned 1 of 1, complete, module execution complete. Okay, well, where's my result? That's what I need here. I need to know what's going on here. Is there anything else that I was missing? No, doesn't seem to be anything that I was missing. So it says, what is the version? SSL, not good. R port 8000. See, I need to change this. You see right here? It's R port 80 automatically because that's the port for HTTP. So I need to change that to R port 8000. And now if I do show options, is the right options. So now I can do run and it'll give me the result that I'm looking for. Boom, there it is. So scanned 1 of 1, 403, forbidden, but look at what we got here. WebFS 1.21. So that's all we needed, really. That's the answer that we were looking for, is what is running on port 8000, and that is WebFS 1.21. So what is the Penny user's SMB password? Use the word list mentioned in the previous task. So SMB login is going to be the module that we're going to be using in this case. And so we're going to go back here and we're going to search for SMB login, and there should be, yep, there's only one. So use 0, which is the one that we want. Show options. And there is all the stuff that we need to actually set here. And so let's see, we have the, what do we have? There's a lot of options on this one. Look at that. So all these things have already been set, so I'm not going to mess with any of that stuff. Pass file, which is the file containing passwords on 1 per line. That is not a requirement, but we could definitely set that. And I think we're going to set that. Then our host is required, of course. Our port is required. SMB pass and SMB user are not required, but we're going to assign those. And then there's the user file containing usernames 1 per line. So I need to set the SMB user to be Penny. So that's the first thing that we got to do here. Set SMB user to Penny, or is it E? No, Penny IE. No, it's Penny Y. So Penny is now there, and now I need to also set the pass file, which is pass_file. So set pass file to the path that we have here for our password file. Where's our password file? Right here. So we're going to copy this thing and we're going to set that as our password file. Whoa. There we go. Password file has been set. So show options. There we go. We have the user is Penny. Our password file is the password file right here. And now, last but not least, never forget that you got to set your R hosts. So we're going to do R hosts. Is it R hosts or host? R hosts. We're going to do R hosts. We're going to paste that, enter, and everything's all good. So we're going to run now. And there you go. Failed. All of these passwords have failed. So it's going to give us the right password as soon as it finds it. Success. Penny right here. Leo1234 is the password, and just like that we found the password for Penny, which is right here, Leo1234. So easy enough, right? Not bad. And now we can move on to the next portion of this, which is the Metasploit Database. So let's go check that out. The Metasploit Database is actually something that is not inside of MSF console from what I can see here. So it's not required when interacting with a single target. An actual penetration testing engagement will likely have several targets. So Metasploit has a database function to simplify project management and avoid possible confusion when setting up parameter values. We'll first need to start PostgreSQL, which Metasploit will use with the following command: systemctl start PostgreSQL. So we are going to first get out of MSF console. Or actually, you know what? I'm just going to open up a new thing because it takes some time for it to restart. So from here, I'm just going to do systemctl start PostgreSQL and systemctl. Okay, that's all good. Now, MSFDB init will initiate the Metasploit database. And we're going to wait a couple of seconds for that to start, but this is going to be it. It says, please run it as a non-root user. Isn't that interesting? Okay, I don't know how to run it as a non-root user. That's crazy. You will need to initialize the database using init command, which is going to look like this. You can now launch MSF console and check the database using the DB status, and then it'll kind of give us the status connected to MSF connection type PostgreSQL. And then you can do workspace as a command, and it'll give you what the default workspace or the current workspaces that exist. And then you can add a workspace using A and then delete using D. The respective one looks like this. So if I wanted to add TryHackMe, that's what it would look like. And then if I wanted to delete it, I could just use -D. And that's basically it. You will also notice that the new database name is printed in red, starting with an asterisk symbol right here, although it doesn't show red for us. You can use the workspace command to navigate between workspaces. So if you do workspace followed by the name of the workspace, it'll switch to that workspace. So workspace equals these two, and then workspace default means that now you're using the workspace default, and then workspace again, and it's TryHackMe or default, and the asterisk is now in front of the one that's active, which is default. And so you can use the workspace H command to list available options for this, which is basically a help menu. And the usage is like this. So workspace lists workspaces, -V workspaces verbosely, the name switches to it, A name adds one, D name deletes one, capital D deletes all of the workspaces, so keep that in mind. If you want to delete just one, you need to make sure that it's a lowercase d. Workspace R is to rename a workspace, and then H just shows the help menu. And different from regular Metasploit, once it's launched with a database, the help command, you'll see the database backend commands menu. And so this is what all of the backend commands for that specific workspace or the database workspace looks like, right? If you run nmap using the db nmap, all results will be saved to that database. So you would do db_nmap and just run everything else as normal, and everything that's printed here will actually be saved to that database in the workspaces. And now we can search information relevant to hosts and services running on the target systems with the host and services command respectively. So if we run hosts, it'll show us what the hosts are, and if we run services, it'll show us what these services are. And these are the things that were used inside of the nmap, right? This is the stuff that was extracted via nmap for us, which is, I mean, it's pretty awesome the way that it works and the way that it can be done, especially when you get a hang of it. So if you do host H and services H, it'll give you the help menus for those things. And once the host information is stored in the database, you can use the host R to add this back to the rhost parameter, right? So, or to add it to the rhost parameter. The example workflow would look like this. So you do vulnerability scanning for the MSF or MS17010 by using this. So you would use this, and then this is the name of the exploit that we want. And then it's going to activate it for you, and it's going to look like this, right? Then you say, I want to add hosts by the one that's inside of our hosts values based on what we have in our database. So we say host R, and then it's going to show you the host right here, and it's going to add, it says our host has been turned into whatever the host is right here, which is the first one, or the only one in this case, that exists in our hosts list for the database. And so if we do show options to check to see if everything was assigned correctly, you'll actually get to see that the, where is it? We have check, yada, 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 yada. Our host has been assigned. There you go. And then our port is 445, which is what's being used for this particular exploit. But yeah, it was assigned correctly. And then in this example, this is the IP address we've scanned earlier using the nmap for database. And now when everything is set, we can just run or exploit, and it'll work perfectly in our particular case. And so we see that everything has been actually run and everything's all good. If there's more than one host saved to the database, all IP addresses will be used when host R command is used. So that's important to keep in mind. In a typical pen test engagement, we would have the following scenario. You would find all available hosts using Nmap, scan these further for vulnerabilities or open ports using a port scanning module, and then the services command with the S parameter will allow us to search for specific services in the environment. And then you would say services S netbios, and then this is what the services that would be available for this. And then you can use that further in the running of your exploit. We can look for low-hanging fruit using HTTP for a web application where you can find vulnerabilities like SQL injection or remote execution, FTP for file transfer protocol, any anonymous login, and provide access to interesting files that might be useful. Server message block exploits like MS17010, and the secure shell, anything that might be easy to get access to, and RDP for remote desktop to be able to get into remote desktop on a Windows machine or something like that. So all of these things are super useful. Unfortunately, I couldn't run them inside of my machine right here because apparently I have to do it with a non-root user, which is kind of odd to think about. But that's basically it on how to use a database. And you can run through this and read this for yourself. And there's a lot of information about the MSF console and databases and all that stuff that you're more than welcome to Google and search and find online and just run with it. You know what I mean? Use it and run with it, and it'll all be great. So moving on to vulnerability scanning with Metasploit. So there are some really good vulnerability scanners inside of Metasploit, and it'll help you find stuff that could be qualified as low-hanging fruit, which is basically easily identifiable and exploitable vulnerabilities that can give us foothold or access to a system and even gain high-level privileges such as root or admin. So finding vulnerabilities using Metasploit will rely heavily on your ability to scan and fingerprint the target. So you need to be able to know what version or what OS or something that you want to find the vulnerability for. And the better you are at that, the better Metasploit can help, right? So if we identify a VNC service running on the target, you can use search to list any useful modules for VNC, for example, and then you can use whatever is available and then use the options, so on and so forth. So the result will contain a payload and post modules. At this stage, these results are not very useful as we haven't discovered a potential exploit to use just yet, but in the case of VNC, there are several scanner modules that we can use. So there are several scanner modules that you can use in this case. And then we can do info for any module to have a better understanding of it before you go into it. Info will give you information about it as well as the options that you would need to set, and who the creator was, the license, all of this stuff. And these are, it also shows you the options. So it's kind of similar to the show options menu, but it gives you a little bit more like the description of it, the references of it, the creator, and all that different kind of stuff. So this one is for VNC login that we're looking at over here. And as we can see, that the VNC login module can help us find login details for VNC service. So who wrote the module that allows us to check SMTP servers for open relay? So let's do a little bit of searching in here. So if I go into search SMTP and see what I'm sure there's a lot of stuff over here. And what we're looking for is the one that has to do with open relay. So let's see what the hint says. Search, use, and info. Yeah, that's all they give us. So we need SMTP and open relay to be the thing that we're looking for here. So let's see what we can find. All right, this one looks pretty interesting. So it's SMTP relay right here. So number 23 looks pretty interesting. And the description gives us an SMTP open relay detection. So 23, I think, is the one. And if I just look at everything else over here, just to confirm, doesn't look like there's much over here with the exception of our open relay. So 23 is going to be the one that we're going to use. So use 23 right here. And now we have it. And now we do info just to pull up the info about this mofo. And we got the information. And provided by who? Campbell Murray. And that's the answer right here. So pretty simple, right? Pretty easy to use. And obviously, you can do a lot with that because there's a lot of modules and a lot of information that you can use So for example, I'll do this, I'll show you this, because it's pretty crazy. So if I do search Apple, for example, there's going to be a bunch of things about Apple. And then if I go in here, this is 85 results here for Apple. And so Apple iOS WebKit backdrop filter, Apple iOS text gather, Apple iOS browser, Apple iOS WebKit. There's a lot of stuff that we can use over here, and it's all very, very useful. And you can do this for Android, you can do this for anything, a Mac or Unix or Linux, anything, you know what I mean. Java applet is also a part of this thing, so just kind of keep that in mind. It doesn't have to do anything with Apple specifically. Apple bypass or pineapple bypass. Pineapple, Apple iOS interpreter. Here we go, some interesting stuff here. So Apple iOS interpreter reverse TCP inline. That's very, very useful. So I'm probably going to try to hack into my own iPhone using Apple iOS to see what good information that I can find. So yeah, it's pretty cool to be able to find all these things using search and just going through MSF console just to see what we can find here. Now let us move on to exploitation, which requires another machine. So I'm going to start this machine and we're going to jump into exploitation with Metasploit. As the name suggests, Metasploit is an exploitation framework. So exploits are the most populated module category. There's a lot of exploits in here. Version details would be, in this particular case, what we're looking at is V5. 2,048 exploits and 1,100 auxiliaries and 344 posts, 562 payloads, 45 encoders, a lot of stuff, right? So we can use search to search for a lot of things. We can use info to find things about it or learn things about each individual exploit. And then from there, we can run the exploit using the word exploit or run. So if I go into this, for example, so we have the Windows SMB MS17 Eternal Blue, which is a big one for pen testing. We've used this a few times. And then so if we use this particular one, we can do show payloads, and it'll show all the compatible payloads for this particular one. So bind TCP, execute, load library, a lot of stuff, right? Once you decided the payload that you want to use, then you would do set payload, and then you would choose the payload that you want. And it also has the number associated with it, so it'll be the same thing. So set payload 2, and I'll say generic shell reverse TCP. Show the options now, and we'll see that under our payload option, we actually have that activated. So where's the payload specifically here? Does not say it. So it just says module options for Eternal Blue, our host SMB domain, SMB user, verify target, so on and so forth, name, L host and L port, and then the exploit target, Windows 7, and yada, yada, yada. So it now shows you all of the options available for that. I think the options will also change based on the payload that you use. And so know that choosing a working payload could become a trial and error process due to environmental or OS restrictions such as firewall rules and things of the sort. And of course, if the payload execution isn't available using whatever the specific thing that you're trying to do. So some payloads will open new parameters that you may need to set. So running the show options is very important to actually be able to do this. So once we have the payload that we've chosen, set L host, and then set, run exploit, it'll show you what is actually happening. And this I think is already assuming. So all of this information has to do with the above section. And then now you can set the L host, which is the victim, or excuse me, the listening host, which is us. It's the attack box in this case. And then you exploit and you run it. And now it's going to get a reverse TCP handler on our machine on that port. And it'll go, and once it's done, it actually changes your command line for you, and now you are in. And so if you do Control Z or Control C, you can abort what we're doing, or excuse me, my bad. You can background it using Control Z or abort it using Control C. And backgrounding a session will be useful when working on more than one target simultaneously or on the same target with a different exploit or shell. So that's also really important to keep in mind, and that's when it becomes pretty advanced. So what you can do is when you background something, now you have it in your sessions environment. So it's going to look at, when you click sessions, it'll show you all the active sessions, and that is when you can see what is available as far as all the different sessions that you have open and running that are backgrounded. And then you can do sessions H, obviously, to do a help menu, and you can interact with any existing session using that specific one followed by the ID of it. So if you do sessions and it shows you that there's one session, that is the session that we just created right now, then you can do sessions I1, and it now starts interacting with this session that you have, with this reverse shell that we created on the Windows machine, and then it changes it back to the command line for that Windows machine. Notice that it was at MSF6 exploit, and this is what it was. We ran sessions, we see the session itself, and it's still MSF6, and then we do sessions I1, and now it changes it back to the Windows session that we got. So deploy the target machine and answer the question. So exploit one of the critical vulnerabilities on the target VM. What is the content of the flag, and what is the NTLM hash of the user pirate? So we are going to see what we can do on this target VM here. Let's see what the hint will give us here. Target is missing the MS17 Eternal Blue patch. So, I mean, just like that, all I need to do is I need to search for Eternal Blue, and it'll give me the Eternal Blue at the very first one, and it's the MS017. So use 0 is going to be the command that I'm going to run, and no payload configured, so defaulting to Windows x64 Meterpreter reverse TCP. So we haven't set a specific payload, so it's just defaulting to the Windows 64. So exploit one of the critical vulnerabilities. So let me see what the show options are in this case. And it says the L host, which is us already, that's already been set. Everything else has already been set. SMB pass is not required. None of these things are required. We just need to set the R host, which is the IP address of the machine. So I'm going to set our hosts to be this our IP address over here. And then we're going to run it. And let's see if this works. And it looks like it's working. Connection established for exploitation. Target OS selected. Target Arch selected. And let's see if this is actually gonna finish. Ooh, let's see. Okay, that was weird. So it gave me a long list of failed and closed sessions. And then when I finally gave the interrupt Control C, it actually said Meterpreter. And I was like, oh shit. And then I tried to run a command, and then it just immediately kicked me out. So I'm going to say that that didn't work. So what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to do basically what they showed us in the lab itself. So we're going to do show payloads, and then we're going to choose the payload that they chose, which is the, I think it's the generic shell reverse TCP is what they chose. So if I come up here and look at it, number 2 is generic command bind, generic shell TCP. So I'm going to use that one. So we're going to use, or set payload 2, I think is the command that they did. Yeah. So we're going to do set payload 2, and it'll sell it to that. And if I do show options, it will hopefully show everything the same that was before. We have our hosts, we have everything else as well. So we're going to run it one more time and see how it works this time around. Hopefully we'll actually get an official Meterpreter reverse shell. So let's see how that goes. All right, this actually worked. And what I did was I changed the payload to the generic reverse shell TCP, which is exactly the payload that was here in the one that they chose, the generic reverse shell. And I needed to restart the victim machine, the virtual machine right here, because there was a couple of times that it gave me an error saying that it is not vulnerable. And usually what that means is that either the IP address isn't working or there's something going on with the victim machine. So I had to just reset the victim machine. And from there, I just ran the exploit exactly as it is. So I just set the R hosts here to the IP address of the new victim machine, and then just made sure that the payload option was that payload. And then I ran, so just run, and then it just went a couple of times over here. And then now we have our shell over here. So now what we need to do is we need to just find the information that they were looking for, which is the content of the flag. So let's go here and we'll do, I think it's a Windows, so we can only do dir. And there's a lot of stuff in here and I don't think it's here. So get working directory or do cd, and cd says that we're here. So we're going to go to the home right here, the very root directory. And we're going to go into users and see what we can find in here. And there is John and there's public. I'm going to go to John and let's see what's inside his desktop and do a dir, and there's nothing in his desktop. So we can go back a couple here and then let's do public and let's see what's over there. And there is nothing. So volume in has no label, directory of this file not found. So there's nothing in there. So now we gotta do some nifty work to see if we can find our file name. So let's see. Yeah, let's see if we can find the file name of flag.txt. Okay, so it was inside John's document folder, which is right there, flag.txt, and I think we can do type, which it would basically print it onto the screen. Yep, and there it is. So there we got it. We got our flag. It was inside John's document folder. And now the last piece right here is what is the NTLM hash value of the user pirate? So what we need to do for that is use hash dump. All right, so I went back and I used the original payload that was available with the Eternal Blue, which is the Windows x64 Meterpreter reverse TCP. And the unique difference between Meterpreter and the reverse shell that we had previously is that when you have a Meterpreter session, what you can do is you can use all of the exploits of Metasploit within the session itself. So if you did, and we got a Meterpreter shell this time, and the main reason for that again was because I didn't reset the victim machine and I needed to reset the victim machine. So that was something that there was a reason why it didn't work the first time and it took such a long time for it to load, so on and so forth. So now that I actually have the Meterpreter session, I can do everything that I could have done before, right? So I could do, I think ls is actually the incorrect command. Oh no, ls does work because, so the same thing. So now I can do print working directory and it'll say this is where I am. And I can do, you know, I can go to cd, c users and go into John. And then from here, I cannot find the file specified. So cd, c users, John. So let's see, we'll do cd back and then do print working directory. And this is where we are. We'll do ls. And we have users, so let's do users and do an ls. And there is a John, so I don't know why it didn't work before. Now we'll do an ls, and there's all these things here. So that should have worked before, but now we should be able to use hash dump. There you go. Now we can actually use hash dump, and that is the hash for the user pirate. So just like that, we needed the Meterpreter session, which is the important part of this entire process. That's why the original shell that we had, it worked and I was able to retrieve the flag that way. But in order for us to be able to retrieve the actual hash dump or be able to use hash dump outside of a session, because it required a session, and then you already saw everything that happened. It required a session. It said you can't use a shell as your session. And what I had previously was a reverse shell. Instead of using that reverse shell, you could just use a Meterpreter session. And that Meterpreter session can use hash dump by itself now because it's a part of the MSF console modules and payloads that we can use. So just like that, we were able to retrieve the hash of this person. And I guess the hash for this case, it's not actually the first section, it's this section, because that was the correct answer the last time. So that is the hash for the pirate user. And so we're good with this one. And now we can move on to the last piece, which is MSFVenom. So let's do MSFVenom and have some fun with that. All right, so for MSFVenom, there's a lot of things that you can do. And you can do this without actually being inside of MS console or MSF console. And in this particular case, we just want to list the payloads that are available for MSFVenom. And that is as simple as doing MSFVenom L or -L and then payloads. And it's going to pull all of the payloads that are available. And as you can see, there's a lot of stuff here. You can have output formats. So list formats will show you all of the different formats that can be used as an output. And you can have an executable format. And here we go. This is all the results that came here. And as you can see, there's a lot of stuff over here. And then you can do list formats to just show what all of the output formats are for any payload that you create. And what that means is that it could be an executable if you wanted it to be, or it could be any kind of a file if you wanted it to be. And in a lot of cases, you would need some kind of an executable. And here we go. You have all these different formats over here as well. And then it can be a Windows executable and so on and so forth. So there are encoders that are available with MSFVenom, which means that it encodes it in a certain format if you needed it. So in this particular case, the command is kind of a long one, but it says MSFVenom. Let me zoom in here. Let's see. So it says MSFVenom. The P is going to be the payload that we want to create. The listening host is going to be our attack box. And the format is a raw file. And the encoding is going to be a base64 encoding. And so that's basically what it does for you. And then it finishes it, and then it outputs it onto the current folder that you're in, the current directory that you're in. And a lot of times we want to actually create some kind of a name for it so that it's a little bit easier to handle on the back end. And then, no pun intended, but then there are the handlers that we can use. And then if we look at payload options, you can see that you can create a different type of handler for all of these things that are available here. So, MSFVenom, this is again the payload that we want. This is the listening host, the listening port, and it will be a raw format in this particular case, and an output with that little arrow, and it's going to be output into a PHP reverse shell for you. And that way you can generate a PHP reverse shell using MSFVenom, start Metasploit handler, and execute the reverse shell. And that could be one of the things that you can do. And so you do cat reverse shell, and it shows you that it's a PHP file, and it has all the information in it for you. And then you can literally just run it, and it has the IP address of the listener as well as the port of the listener. And the reverse shell should be edited to convert to a working PHP file, which in this case, you see that they haven't, they put this / and it kind of commas out, or comments out, I guess is a better way of saying it. And you got to remove those things so that it's actually now a working PHP reverse shell. And then below the tag at the very, very end, there's also something that you have to do, which is again the same thing. So you just got to make sure that the ending tag looks exactly like that too. And then what we're going to use for this situation is going to use the incoming multi-handler. And so you launch MSF console, you use the multi-handler, and it supports all the payloads and can be used from Interpreter. To use the module, we're going to need to set the payload value to the PHP reverse PHP and set the L host and L port values. So use the multi-handler when you're inside the console, set the payload to be that, and set the payload, set the L host, the L port, and then show the options. And now it says the payload is such, L host, L port, all that stuff is set. And once everything is set, you just run it. And then it'll give you that reverse TCP shell. If the payload was set as a Meterpreter, the multi-handler would then provide us with a Meterpreter shell. And then there are other payloads that you can use. So this is a Linux executable in a linkable format, which is ELF. Then you have a Windows executable, which is with its own format, which is the exe. So ELF is basically the same as exe, it's just for Linux. And then you have the PHP version of things, you have the ASP version of things, the Python version of things. So all of these are reverse payloads, which means that you can have an exploit multi-handler running or a netcat listener running, and then you would receive your shell. So that's the idea here with creating payloads. So what we're going to do, I've already launched this machine, or I guess I haven't. Let me just make sure that I launched this machine so that it's up and running for us. And it's going to be the MSFVenom task. So let me start this machine. That's going to take a minute. Once we launch that machine, we are going to be able to log into it using the Murphy and Murphy's password. We can either connect via SSH or just use the machine in the browser. Once inside the terminal, we're going to switch the user to get a root shell, and this will make things a little bit easier. Then we're going to create a Meterpreter payload in the ELF format on our attack box or on your own attack machine if you want to. And then we're going to transfer it using a Python web server, and then we're going to get a Meterpreter session on the target machine, use post exploitation to dump the hashes, and then get the password hashes. So simple enough. All right, our machine loaded, so now we can secure shell into it as Murphy. So let's do SSH Murphy at 10.10.7339. Enter. Yes, we want to connect, and let's go use their password right here, which is this thing. So we're just going to copy that and see if we can paste that, and that should be all good. And we should have our reverse shell real quick, and there is our reverse shell for this. Once on the terminal, type sudo su to get a root shell, and sudo password for Murphy, and we'll do that again and press enter. Now we have a root shell. Very good. So that's all good, and it's clear. To make things a little bit easier, now we're going to create a Meterpreter payload in the ELF format. And the way that we want to do that is we're going to use this version right here. So we're just going to type it out real quick. And that is the command. So MSFVenom, payload is going to be Linux x86 Meterpreter reverse TCP. The listening host is going to be our IP address on the attack box, the listening port 9999, and it's going to be an ELF format that we want, and that's going to be the output file. So if I do ls now, I now have my output file over here. So now I need to serve this on a Python HTTP server, and that's going to be available on port 8000. So I will do wget, and I will run http / 10.10.46.36. I will do port 8000 at the end of this, and then I'm going to go and get the location of this, which should be root, and then reverse shell ELF. So root reverse shell ELF. And we served it and we got it. So if I run ls here, I should have it, right? It says message file not found, So maybe it's not root. So maybe I can just do the same thing, and instead of doing root, I'll just do reverse shell ELF like that. And let's see, yeah, that one worked. So there you go. So reverse shell ELF is now on my system, and that is the Linux format. So we're able to serve it. Now get a Meterpreter session going. So from here we can cancel out our Python server, get into MSF console, and get ourselves a multi-handler going on. So it's going to be use exploit multi-handler, which is what is happening here, and that'll give us the multi-handler. And then the shell or the payload should be a Linux. I don't think it's going to be a PHP reverse. Should be a Linux. So let's see. First, let's do use exploit multi-handler and generic shell reverse TPCP. So let's see. Show payloads, and let's see what's available on this thing. 911 freaking payloads. Holy cow. Okay, so I need to find the one that is relevant to me here. All right, so here's a shortcut for you to know which one you're supposed to be using. Since we used MSFVenom to create this payload, this is literally going to be the payload that we're going to use for our multi-handler. So now I'm going to do set payload and just paste that in here, and it's going to be the Linux interpreter reverse TCP yada yada yada. And we need to be able to run all of this. So the reverse shell should be an executable. So if I do lsla, you'll see that the reverse shell doesn't have a permission to execute. This little X at the end of this, that means that we can execute it on whatever account that we're on, and that one doesn't have it. So we need to do chmod, which is for change modification, and we're going to do 777, which is all permissions that are available, including the executable permission. And now if I did lsla one more time, you'll see that it's turned green, which means that you can actually run it. So now we should be able to run that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to show the options of our multi-handler. We need to set an L host, which is our host. We need to set the L port. In this case, it's 4444, but I set 9999. So I got to make sure that I do that. So L host is going to be 10, 10, 46, 36. And then set L port is going to be 9999. And then that should all be good, and I can run that. And now we have a reverse TCP handler on our current machine. So now I should be able to just run the reverse shell. So I think it's /reverse shell.elf. And there we go. And we just got our interpreter session in the bottom right here. So all good over here. So now what we can do again is do what we did previously and just do a hash dump. Since we have interpreter session, requires privileged extension to be loaded. So run load priv. So we're going to do load priv, failed to load session, priv not found. So here's what I have gathered. Because the hash dump previously that we used was on a Windows machine, it worked that way. But we are now in a Linux machine, which means that we have to try to do this in the context of a Linux machine, which I think it's the same, but it's not the same. It's kind of weird. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna pull the actual path for it, and then we'll use the hash dump path for Linux inside of MSF console. And it's like this. So it's run post linux gather hash dump, and the specified interpreter script could not be found. So run maybe post without the initial slash. So gather hash dump, like that. There you go. Okay, so that worked. So just without the forward slash in the beginning, and we got it, right? So we're inside the interpreter session. The interpreter session worked. We have the Murphy username and hash. We have the Claire username and hash. Unshadowed password file is such and such. And this is what we wanted. So we wanted the password, what is the other users? So Murphy is the one that we're logged in, and the other user is Claire. And we have their hash. And it's this giant thing because it's a very, very long hash. So it's from here and it goes all the way to here. And this is their hash. And just like that, we were able to receive the shadowed hash file. Now, a lot of people, I've heard people ask me this before as well, where it's like, okay, well, if you already have root permission, why do you need to do any of these other things to be able to pull that information? So if it was the case, why don't we just kind of go back here and notice how the interpreter session just closed in my other room or in my other file, but I'm still at the root of this person. So why don't I just do cat etc shadow for a reason, and it's not Kate, it's cat etc shadow. And why don't you just run the shadow file and just get the shadow file directly from here and get the hash of the person directly from there? That just avoided having to do all of this other stuff, which is absolutely true. You're absolutely right. But there's going to be some cases where you can't do that. There's going to be some cases where you don't have root access to something, and you need to be able to still run something else, meaning use another tool like MSF console to be able to get you those hash files anyways. So this is what's very important here. And there's a lot of other things that had we ran it. So let's go back And then since this is here, so let me see, I can do back, and I'm still running the multi-handler, so I'll just run the multi-handler one more time and then go in this person and just do the last connection right here and just do that. And now we have our reverse interpreter session one more time. And now if I do LSLA, this gives me way more information on each of the files that I'm supposed to be accessing, or that I could be accessing. There's just more things that are available when you do it within MSF console. Then you have the benefit of using everything that MSF console has as a payload and a module while running a interpreter session, instead of just running it directly from the Linux machine that you're in. So there's going to be a lot of limitations in the future when you run these exercises in different machines or in different exercises outside of TryHackMe. And what you get with MSF console is the benefit of having all of the other thousands of payloads that are also available, instead of what would just be limited inside of the victim machine itself. So there's a lot of benefits to using MSF console. And yeah, it's a longer way around. I totally understand. It's a longer route that you take to get to where you want it to go. But as the fact, by doing that, you just get more as the options for payloads and modules and other things that you can run and just make these things work for yourself. So at least you now know how to do both of them, right? So that's kind of like the big thing that I wanted you to really understand and have access to. And so we still have the interpreter session, so we can just exit that, and now we're outside of this, and just like that, we're done. We're finished with our exercise here, and we were able to use MSFVenom to create a payload. We transferred our payload using the Python server, and we created that Python server. We transferred our payload into the victim machine, and then we ran a interpreter multi-handler from MSF console, which acts very similar to a reverse shell or a listener, that was done by Netcat, something like that. But the benefit is that when you run the multi-handler from MSF console, you actually get all of the modules and all the payloads that are also available inside of MSF console, and then you run the actual script itself on the victim machine, and that gives you your connection to interpreter. And then from there, you're off to the races, and you can do pretty much whatever you want, including run all the extra payloads that are available inside of interpreter, MSF console, so on and so forth. So that was it for this, and we are officially done with this room. And now we can go wrap the summary. I mean, the summary is irrelevant, so I'm not even going to read through this. So you are done. You're officially done. I hope you found this room valuable, and I hope you learned a lot from it. If you are studying for the Pen Test Plus or Junior Pen Tester or Ethical Hacker or any of these certifications, or Security Analyst, any of these things, I do welcome you to like, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell. What we do in this channel is only talk about hacking and penetration testing and security analysis and cybersecurity and all that stuff. That's literally the only thing that this channel does. So everything that we talk about is directly applicable to your certification exams, as well as what you're going to be doing on a day-to-day as a pen tester or an ethical hacker or security analyst. So all these things will be super useful to you. And if you have any questions or anything that weren't covered, please drop them in the comment section below, and I will answer those questions as soon as I see them. And apart from that, it would just be really awesome to have you as a part of our community. We've had a beautiful growth spurt, and we keep, having wonderful people just like you, awesome ethical hackers just like you, who join our community and just make it so much more fun to go down this journey of learning ethical hacking and pen testing and all that stuff. So super, super fun to do. Would love to have you. It would be an honor and a privilege, and just really, really cool to have another buddy in this journey of ethical hacking. It's your boy Hank Hackerson at Hank Hacks Hackers, your favorite network and system attacker. And peace, love, and chicken grease. If no one else loves you, Hank loves you. I will definitely see you in the next room. And I am going to go have dinner because it's been a very long day of recording here. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.